Our next guest is new to the show. Her name is Nikesha Elise Williams, and she is going to talk to us about a number of things, but primarily her new book, which I got a copy of, The Seven Daughters of Dupree. I just got my copy in today, so I haven't had a chance to um, dive into it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. So, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for
You're
being here.
welcome. So, this is your this book came out recently, like
Last week, a week ago
last week.
Tuesday.
Mhm. Uh,
Congratulations.
Congratulations
Thank
on that
you.
because I couldn't when I went to order it, they it wasn't released yet, so I had to. That's why I got it today. So, is this which book is this for you? Is this a debut
It,
book?
it's my traditional debut, but it's my eighth book overall.
Okay, all right. So, your first traditionally published book, and what intrigued me about it when I was reading about the synopsis and the information before, because I would get information about the books that are coming out. Dozens each month come out, and my I like historical fiction. Your book is about multiple generations.
Yes.
Okay, and that really got my attention. So that's why one reason why I ordered it. If it's historical fiction or has a historical bent to it, I'm likely to order it. But I have so many books that I haven't read. But I if I don't get a chance to read a book, um, at least I'm supporting the authors by buying the books. So
Hmm.
they do send me arcs, but I don't use the arc for reading it. We normally would give away an arc on the show. But for my
Okay.
personal library, I buy books because it's important too. Those numbers do count.
Yes, they do.
So tell us about the Seven Daughters of Dupree and what it's all about.
Yeah, so The Seven Daughters of Dupree is a historical fiction novel about the secrets kept between mothers and daughters over the course of seven generations. And it's told backwards in time from 1995 to 1860. It starts in 1995 on the south side of Chicago, which is where I'm from, with 14-year-old Tatiana. It's her birthday. But before she can go out and celebrate with her mom and her friends, she has to go down to the basement where her mother, Nadia, runs a basement beauty salon. And the client for the day is her grandmother, Gladys, whom Tati calls Mimi. And you would think that, in this basement salon with three generations, that Gladys and Nadia would be like encouraging Tati and giving her words of wisdom and really passing down all that they've learned. But that is not happening between these three. And in fact, Tati has a lot of anger and angst towards her mother and grandmother because they're keeping a secret from her. She desperately wants to know the identity of her father, and they refuse to tell her. And so that is the very first secret in the line of the Dupree women that extends all the way back to the fictional town of Land's End, Alabama, where the first in their line lived. But they don't know anything about this woman. They don't know her name. They don't know where she was originally from. They only know the legend of how she died. And that legend is the very first line of the book, which is in the prologue. And it says, they cut off her head because she ran. And so with that line, it tells the reader, or should signal to them that we're going to deal not only with enslavement, but the Jim Crow South, Reconstruction, the Great Migration. There are also themes and subject matter of passing and colorism and the maternal care crisis all throughout the book, and it comes full circle in the end.
It sounds like a lot of research for this book.
There was a good bit of research, but a lot of it was knowledge that I already had. I'm a journalist by trade. I spent 11 years as a television news producer, and then I freelanced as a journalist for 3 years, writing for various publications. So a lot of the stories that I was writing were about the Black maternal care crisis, healthcare crisis. So that played a part and showed up on the page. I've written a couple of articles about a place where I live called Kingsley Plantation, how it's connected to American Beach in Jacksonville, Florida, and in Northeast Florida. And that kind of showed up on the page at the time that I was writing. I was obsessed with stories of the Clotilda. And so that showed up on the page. And then, like, a lot of the storyline that's in the contemporary part in Chicago is based on my own nostalgia from home because that's where I was born and raised.
Hmm. Now, where's the impetus for this story? Where did it come from?
Oh goodness. Initially it came from I wanted to write a story about a girl who didn't know her father. As kind of a way to explore my own complex relationship with my father. But the thing about it is that what I thought was going to happen on the page did not. I thought that my main character, Tatiana, would have anger for her father, but I realized that if he's not there, she can romanticize and idealize that relationship and save the anger for the people who are around her, the ones who feel she feels are keeping a secret from her. So it started with just Tatiana. And then I realized when I started writing from her point of view, a 14-year-old girl was only going to take me but so far. And then I included her mother's point of view in the very first draft. And then I brought it to a resolution in the end. But the story really blew wide open into this like generational epic. Maybe a few months after I finished that first draft, when I was listening to a friend of mine, another writer friend on a podcast, talking about writing your best first line. And so then I asked myself that question, well, what would my best first line be? And it really descended on me. They cut off her head because she ran. And I knew in an instant with that line what I was going to deal with, how far back I was going to go, what the ending was going to be. And then I just kind of had to fill in the blanks between Tatiana, Nadia, and Gladys and the other women to get to that enslaved ancestor.
So, unless I heard wrong, this isn't exactly a chronological story.
It's not, no.
Okay, that's what I
Sounds like
thought.
it goes back
And
and
it
forth.
seems like this seems like your character is just experiencing these different women, like maybe through conversation or through relationships. Um,
No, I mean it's not a linear story, but when you are in a specific time period, you are definitely in that character's point of
okay, got
view
it,
and seeing it from their perspective. And
got it.
so what I did in the writing is that, my very first draft was just Tatiana and Nadia's story and then a resolution. And then when I got the expanded storyline, I had to start with Tachi's grandmother, Gladys. And so then I literally wrote each character section backwards in like different documents. So then I would write Gladys, and then the next mother was Ruby, and then the next one was Jubilee, and then the next one was Emma, and then the final one was the enslaved ancestor. And after I had written all of those separate pieces, I then started an entirely new document, opened all of those different pieces, including the original first draft, and really like braided them together. And so the reason the structure isn't linear is because in Black history, and especially with people, with Black Americans now trying to, find their roots and do genealogy and submit their DNA to these different websites. You find pieces and parts of your history and your lineage, but it's not all together from the top to the bottom, from beginning to end. There are gaps sometimes in the information. And so I wanted to show that in the structure of the novel, but then also in the structure of the novel, I wanted to find the parallels between the women. Where do they have similarities that extended beyond space and beyond time? Like, Tatiana's experience on her birthday is contrasted with Emma's experience on her birthday. Nadia falling in love with the man that she shouldn't have is contrasted with Jubilee falling in love with the man that she shouldn't have. Ruby learning how to braid her hair for the first time is paralleled with Nadia learning how to do her hair for the first time. And so every woman is woven together based upon their experiences and what they were going through in their lives, and how those different experiences or secrets or turning points or decision points or the choices that they've made have rippled because they've kept so much of themselves secret and sequestered from their other family members.
Hmm. Now, is this kind of related to, have you explored your own genealogy to go
I
back and find your ancestor as far back as you can go?
I have not. My mother has. So my mother has done our family tree back 7 generations, I believe, on her mother's side, and maybe 4 generations on her father's side. So I know the information exists. I know she has it. I know her stopping points. And she was kind of an inspiration for how the book is structured, because I've watched her do this research and go to different archives in different places and searching for all of the information that she can find. And I've seen where she's had gaps and where she's had to stop because some records no longer exist, or because you were no longer looking for census records or birth certificates, but we're looking for property records, and those don't exist or should manifest, and those don't exist anymore.
Hmm. On my mother's side, we can go back 7 generations from my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
My mother's family kept good records, and we can go as far back as the last slave. That's
Mm-hmm.
so we can't go beyond that woman's. parentage. We don't know um, what her parentage was. But the number seven, somehow, the generations, because that was around the period right before slavery was outlawed. And
Hmm.
I guess a lot of people can go back that far. And then some people are lucky and they get to go further with
Yeah,
actual names, not just the DNA part where you know where what part of Africa you came from.
yeah,
So
It's about getting to know yourself too. Like you said, it's deeper than knowing what part of Africa, but just knowing why you are the way you are, or or why you feel the way you feel, why you're attracted to certain things, or just your whole mindset. You learn that because you finally get to sit at the ancestors' feet.
hmm, and learn from them. Yeah, and so that's what the characters are eventually doing in the novel.
Right.
so what have you been doing publicity wise? Like what are some of the
Oh,
things you've been doing to promote the book?
oh, I'm technically on tour. So the ice storm last week kind of rearranged my tour. I was supposed to do all my stops last week for in time with the publication, but I ended up doing the launch was January 24th, and where I live in Jacksonville, Florida, and then my next I did a virtual event for Mahogany Books. I was supposed to be in DC in person on Wednesday the 28th. But because of the ice storm and everybody being stowed in and not being able to get to where they needed to be and wanting to keep people safe and keep the employees at the store safe, we did last Wednesday's event for DC. We did that virtually online with Jason Reynolds and Mahogany Books. And then I did fly out Thursday last week to go to Chicago. And so I did an event in Chicago, and then I did an event in New Orleans on Friday the 30th. And I did a podcast taping at Baldwin and Co. on the 30th as well. I did a stock signing in Metairie, which is a suburb of New Orleans, while I was down there. And then this week, I'll do my rescheduled dates. I'll go to Greenville, South Carolina on Thursday for their Books Over Drink series and meet with them there. And then Friday, I'll be in Atlanta, and that it will wrap up like the in person events. But then I have a lot of different podcast interviews and conversations like this that I'll be doing that people can tune in and log in or watch back and stuff like that. And then I've got like different appearances for book clubs, most of them virtually, lined up between now and like June.
You were in my neck of the woods when you were in New Orleans, and you hit a few spots I'll be hitting when I go back home next week.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
she also was in the DMV at Mahogany Books.
Well,
Yep.
no,
But she didn't
that was
end up
virtual.
going. That ended up
Yeah.
being virtual. But you were
Yeah,
going to go to Mahogany
I
Books.
was supposed to go there, but the weather wouldn't let me be great.
Oh,
Yeah.
you
Now
could
you're
come on up, and it's just a little ice.
I was ready. I was ready to come up and brave the ice, to have my snow boots, to have my coat, to have all my things, and they were like, "Yeah, no." And so I was like, "Okay."
now. Are you familiar with Tony Bonita in Jacksonville? She goes by Mama Tony,
I've
and
heard her
she's
name
an
before, and I may
avid
have spoken
reader.
to her before.
She watches this show. I think she commented earlier. So she's someone that would be good for you to connect with in Jacksonville because she's in your neck of the woods, and she reads a ton of books, and she's in two or three book clubs, and she's somebody that will be good for you to know as far as, and she'll probably comment since I called her name, but she's someone that you need to connect with since you all are right, in the same neck of the woods.
I believe we've met before, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you also mentioned you had some other books that you were self-published. So what were those books about?
Oh goodness. So I self-published five novels and a poetry collection before I stopped self-publishing in 2020. My first novel that I self-published was called Four Women. And so it was about these four women who didn't know each other, but then one event, which happens to be a murder, brings them all together and you see the fallout of that. And it was really about examining what was going on with Stand Your Ground and Black Lives Matter, but from the point of view of four Black women. And what I wanted to do was take the issue of race out of that case and really look at what stand your ground doctrine does as a portion of castle law, especially in Florida, and look at it through the lens of these different women who were struggling with different issues, whether it was abuse, addiction, or even the price of their own ambition on their lives, and really examine how one event could bring them together and what the consequences of the action would be. And so that was the very first novel. And then there was a sequel to that because Four Women ends on a cliffhanger, which I got cussed out for. But the sequel answers all the questions. The sequel is called The Appeal of Ebony Jones, which really leans into the character who was convicted of a crime she said she did not commit. And so it's the fallout of her case, which you see the entire cast of characters from the first novel and the second and the sequel. The novel after that was Love Never Fails. It was my attempt at a romance. It wasn't a good attempt, but I tried. And there's one character from Four Women who we see go off into the sunset in that novel. The novel after that was Adulting, and really that novel focused on a character named Naomi Grace and her quest to try to have it all, like the job, the husband, the babies, and what does that look like? How does that play out in an ambitious woman's life? And the novel following that one was my novel Beyond Bourbon Street, which looked at a couple dealing with the aftermath. 15 years after Hurricane Katrina, they're having their first child and still living in the lower ninth ward and trying to make a family where so many people have abandoned the land. And that was really an homage to my grandparents, my mother's parents, who did live in the lower ninth ward, who had a home there, who had 23 feet of water in the storm. So if you look at the cover of the novel of Beyond Bourbon Street, the house that's on the cover is my actual grandparents' house. And it was a picture that I took in 2006 after the storm when I went back to sea. So it still had the original National Guard markers and everything boarded up and all of that. And then the poetry collection was called Lessons We Were Never Taught. And it was just really, it was like prose poems examining Black womanhood from girlhood on up through adulthood. And it included 20 poems. And I did that book as a one-woman show. And so those are my self-published works. And then I had one book come out in 2022 that came out with a small press, with the university press, with LSU Press. And that book was called Mardi Gras Indians. It was in the LSU Press's Louisiana True series. It was all about the Black masculine Indians of New Orleans, their tradition, how it's been maintained, how it survives, and how it's evolved.
Wait, you talked all about Rhonda can give you some real feedback because you all over her hometown.
No, I'm just wondering, you actually have family in New Orleans?
Yes. Both of my parents are from there. And then I still have
Oh.
aunts and cousins who live there. And my mother and father used to take my brother and I back all the time, like multiple times a year, every year.
Because you're a little too immersed in New Orleans culture to just have a fleeting interest. I mean,
no, it's not. I have family there. It's like a second home to me.
Okay, that's beautiful. Yeah, I grew up in New Orleans. I no longer live in New Orleans, but I'll be back there next week for my Black History Month literary weekend. So whenever I hear New Orleans, my ears always pop up, and I always want to make sure that they're talking about real New Orleans and not just that fleeting interest or all of the tourist spots, but you actually had a real interest.
Yeah, no, I don't. When I go, I can't be a tourist. I don't hang out there. Like the places that I know are not popular spots. Like I said, my grandmother lived in the lower ninth ward off Claiborne Avenue. So where I'm at are not generally where tourists are unless they're like on a bike tour of the Katrina damage.
Exactly. Now I'm from the lower ninth ward as well. I lived on Caffin Avenue.
Okay. So you're not too far away. And then I had an auntie who lived on Flood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when I went to New Orleans, it was 2004 when we went in July when Rhonda and I went. I wanted authentic New Orleans food. So she sent me to some really good places. And I could tell one of them was a place that natives probably knew better than it wasn't as touristy. But the food was excellent. So in fact, what I ordered, I had to sit at the bar, and there were some other people there that were from out of town, and I ordered some prawns, the very large shrimp that were just like humongous. And the man that was sitting next to me when my order came, he was looking at my shrimp and saying, I should have ordered that. It was really good. I can't remember the name of the place, Rhonda. It was the second place you told me. It wasn't
I
the
don't know
place that
where I
had the
told you to go.
char grilled
I know
oysters.
I
It
told
wasn't
you
that one.
Draco's, but I'm trying to remember the other place I told you to go.
Yeah, that was Draco's, wasn't it? With the char grilled
Yeah.
oysters. Okay, but the other place, um, it's like in the neighborhood.
Well,
I
it'll
don't
come
remember the name, but anyway, it
back.
was good. Authentic New Orleans food is really, really special.
Okay.
So, uh,
No, you
well,
go ahead.
well, I was going to ask her about her journalism career and how it informs your fiction writing.
Yeah, so I think for me, a lot of books start with unanswered questions from journalism. And so, like for example, my first self-published novel, For Women, I was writing that at the time. It was maybe a year after Trayvon Martin was killed by George Zimmerman. And I remember working the case from the newsroom as a producer, building the shows, writing all about it, working the night of that the verdict came in, seeing all the protests, pulling footage and all of that stuff. And then like maybe it was what, like 10 months after Trayvon was killed, another young man was killed, Jordan Davis, here in Jacksonville, over the loud music. And so my question, the unanswered question that I had, because this was before we had the names of like Sandra Bland or Tatiana or Rakia Boyd or Renisha McBride or Breonna Taylor, was like, if it's happening to Black men, I know it's happening to Black women, and we're not talking about it. The names aren't being said, the protests aren't as loud. We don't know the stories, and so that became the unanswered question that I wanted to see play out in fiction, and that's what started it. Same thing for Beyond Bourbon Street. My question was, how do you make a life here? How do you bring new life into this area that people have pretty much abandoned, have turned their backs on, the government included? Um, and so, with most of my work as a novelist stems from whatever question that I have. So, like, you think about the Seven Daughters of Dupree and how the role of birth and birthing and maternal care plays a role throughout this family line. It came from my question that started in the pandemic with it, which was, we're in a global pandemic. How are Black women giving birth? How are they safe? How are they healthy? And we saw during the pandemic the disparity rise to 4 times the rate of white women, of Black women dying in maternal in
So,
birthing situations. And now that number's back down to 3. And so, like, it always starts with an unanswered question, and then I take it to the page and I let it expand from there, and I can play with it a little bit more.
hmm. Well, that's really incredible work that you've done. And as I said, I have my copy of The Seven Daughters of Dupree that I plan on diving into very soon. So thank you so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV, Nikesha. And the book is available wherever books are sold. And we wish you continued success with all your writing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
And
Okay, you're welcome.
congratulations on your release. And yeah, I think you said it's been a week.
Yeah, it's been a week. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I'll be getting my copy as well very soon. Congratulations. I hope you have an amazing, amazing run.
Thank you so much. Y'all have a good one.
You too.
Okay, you too. Have a great night.
Bye. Good night.